Get ready for epic Karen takedowns, and don't pick on disabled people, Karen, or else. This is our first story. Mega Karen, the entitled witch who screamed at me about her rights, insulted me, and then started recording me when I told her to get out, posted by Other Cantaloupe. This one's a doozy. Buckle up. It's gonna be a long story, but it's worth the read. We'll call the woman Karen, and her husband Kent. Let me give you just a mental image of these people, okay? Kent looks like the average middle-aged guy. He's got like a t-shirt and jeans and old tennis shoes. Karen is the pinnacle of all that has ever been categorized as a Karen. Her foundation was way too dark and orange for her skin tone. Her hair was thin and bleached blonde, and she had some kind of crackhead pigtails thing going on. She obviously had done Botox and gotten a lot of fillers in her cheeks. She's also middle-aged, kind of like Dolly Parton's face, except a bit narrower and with Donald Trump's complexion, like i.e. caked in orange foundation, and hair color. Okay, I'd already dealt with one entitled woman who yelled at me during that shift, so I wasn't really having the greatest day. But I was just taking it in stride, until Karen and her husband, Kent, came in. Kent was the one who came to the desk. He was a walk-in, and it was Memorial Day weekend with 3 rooms left to sell. 1 double room on the first floor and 2 suites on the upper floor. Kent talked over me and opted for the double, which was $10 cheaper than a suite, but it was also a pet room on the ground floor, our pet-friendly floor, while 2 and 3 were pet-free. I tried to tell him all the standard stuff, but he was like, yeah, I just want the room. And he wouldn't listen, so whatever, here's your key. He goes to his room with Karen, and everything is great. For about 20 minutes, Kent comes back out and says he can hear someone's dog occasionally barking. Okay, I get it. Listening to a barking dog is annoying as heck. People aren't supposed to leave their pets in the room alone anyway. I apologized and said that I'd call the guest to see what I could do. I offered to move him to another room on the upper floors, and he said, no, we're not moving. We shouldn't have to. People with dogs should have to move. Everyone has dogs down that hallway, Kent. Can't you just move them all to the other end of the hall or something? For a second, I thought he was joking. No, he was not. Holy entitled Batman. No, I can't and I won't. I told him I'd do what I could to get a hold of the guest who owned the dog. He went back to his room and came out 5 minutes later to ask if I'd done anything. Mind you, the dog had stopped barking at this point. I said I couldn't get a hold of the guest, and I again offered him to another room. He said, no, I told you we're not moving. They have to move. Whatever, man. He goes back to his room, and 15 minutes later, he comes back out with Karen. Karen says, okay, this is ridiculous. We didn't pay to hear someone's dog moving around and making noise. You need to tell people that there are dogs in here. It is a pet-friendly hotel, Karen. Well, you need to tell people that. It's on the big sign outside. It's on our website. There's signs about dogs on the walls around the hotel. And it was written on the paper that you signed and initialed when you checked in. Well, they shouldn't be prioritized over people. She stared at me like she was waiting for me to say something, but I don't freaking know what she expected me to say. I just shrugged and said, it's a pet-friendly hotel. Okay, but we're people and we pay to stay here. So did the guests with pets? They paid for a room and they paid the pet fee to stay here. We have rights and we are your priority, not people with dogs. People are prioritized over animals. Yeah, well, pet owners have rights too. Aren't you a snobby freaking witch, getting all smart-mouth with me like you're not supposed to be prioritizing us over animals? You can stop with the smart-mouth witchy attitude right now. And you can leave now. Oh my goodness. The look that flashed across her face as she spluttered in surprise for a second was priceless. No, we aren't leaving. Get out, now. No, give us the other room. No, get out now. But you just offered us another room. I did, and then you got nasty and started screaming and insulting me, so now I'm telling you to leave. Go. No, you're going to give us the other room. If you don't leave, I will call the police and have you escorted off the property. And then, this is the part that makes me so freaking ticked that I swear my soul momentarily left my body to make room for the sheer rage that coursed through me. This witch whipped out her phone to record me, which is illegal in my state. Give us the room. Get out. Are you recording me? Yes, that's what you get when you're a snobby little witch. She was so happy with herself, like she's some kind of freaking genius dealing out some groundbreaking vigilante justice to her cruel oppressors. I can call my manager or call the cops. Pick one or get out. At that point, Karen went freaking berserk and just started screaming and screeching until her orange face turned red, screaming about how they should be prioritized and I'm such a freaking witch, smart mouth, snotty, snobby butthole, and they were getting that room, blah, 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 blah. Tons of insults and crap. My brain was kind of like, yeah, screw this crap. So I was standing behind the desk calmly and sarcastically saying, yep, sure, yep, as she was screaming at me. I reiterated her choices. She demanded my name and my manager. What a surprising turn of events. I cheerfully said, I'll write that down for you. But that didn't stop her from demanding that I tell her my name 1,000,000 times. My guess is she wanted me to say it on video. Kent told me to go call your manager. I went back to the office, I shut the door, called my manager, and just burst into tears as soon as she picked up. All the stress and emotion that I'd held in to keep it together just came out behind closed doors. I said I needed her to come in. I could barely explain why, just that there are these two jerks at the desk screaming at me and recording. Okay, it's okay, my manager said. Let me get dressed and I'll be right in. I tried to stop crying and pull it together before opening the door. I stopped for a second and I heard Karen telling another family that came in what a total witch I was. I opened the door and said, okay, she's on her way. Have a seat. When will she be here? Soon. Again, have a seat. We are not going any. I said, have a seat. She stopped talking and jerked her head back and said, you really do have a snobby, witchy attitude problem, don't you? They went back to their room. The family that witnessed the tail end of it just looked at me like I was a piece of crap whenever they saw me for the rest of their stay. My manager came in and I was just in hysterics, crying and couldn't breathe to tell her what happened. I managed to grind out the beginning of it before Karen comes to the desk. Your employee refused us a room. Really, the manager said, because from what I heard, you refused a room that she offered to you. But then we wanted it and she said no. That's what happens when you yell at my front desk agents. She was yelling at us. I have a video. Yes, she said that you were recording her, which I'm not okay with. I don't care if you have a video. Why don't you come around the desk to talk to us? No, talk to me across my desk. You're being very rude. Just come around the desk to talk to us. This desk is between us for my protection. I don't know what you'll do. Karen huffed and shoved her phone in the manager's face to show her the video. I was back in the office, but from what I heard, the face that she made when she realized she hadn't actually been recording the entire time and only got about 30 seconds where she's yelling and I'm saying, yep, it must have been freaking priceless. My manager eventually gave them another room, which I was ticked as heck about. Why reward them for their bad behavior? This is why they act this way in the first place. Nobody tells them no. Karen was a total jerk. Why does she get to stay? At least my manager told them that they were not to bother me, not to speak to me, not to harass me like that. You can have the room, but you don't bother my front desk agent again. They kept their side of it, apparently. My manager hung around until they were in the new room and my Ativan was kicking in. I didn't hear another word from them, didn't see them again for the rest of the night. Haha, but they needed some kind of slap on the wrist out of the ordeal at the very least. I was ticked that they were staying. So before I went home, I set up a few wake-up calls for their room. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and 4 a.m. I'm told she didn't say a thing about it. Frickin' Karen, man. My horrible mother-in-law is homeless and my wife and I don't care. Posted by Tanning Tanner 11. This is going to be a crazy Karen story. Here it is. I'm a 25 male and married to a 26 female named Carol, and her mother, Danielle, who is 61, is a complete bag of garbage, and that's the nicest thing to say. During Carol's childhood, Danielle would always belittle Carol and manipulate her into the most BS stuff, mostly always claiming that her father abandoned them in Colorado to seek fame and fortune in California, and refusing to pay child support, where she would actually spend said child support on her own self, buying books and clothes and not supporting her daughter. Danielle also changed Carol's last name on Social Security to Danielle's last name when she was a little kid, which made it incredibly difficult for Carol to find a job as an adult because she was an illegal alien to the US government. That meant she had one last name on her birth certificate and a different last name on her Social Security card. Danielle also had a very crap job that didn't pay the best and had to get an apartment with Carol under Carol's name because Danielle had crappy credit and Carol had a 0 credit score because she was 18 at the time and didn't have her own bills to pay. Danielle kept getting on Carol's case about not having a job, but Carol said that she couldn't because of the name issue. They ended up getting evicted due to failure to pay rent because Danielle's job wasn't enough to pay for a luxury apartment and they had to move in with Grandma. Danielle later lost her job during COVID and has been unemployed ever since. There's way too many scenarios about how Danielle would take advantage of her own daughter, but I don't want to bore y'all with all these details. Anyway, on to the story. Back in late 2021, while me and Carol were engaged, she wanted to join the US Navy. She got her name changed to her father's last name on Social Security to match her birth certificate and even gave her recruiter child custody papers to prove her name. She enlisted, got through basic, completed her A schooling, and got her orders to serve on a ship. We got married in September 2022 before she was shipped to Virginia for her new orders. While Carol was serving and I spent time packing my belongings to move out to Virginia myself, I learned that Danielle was going to therapy to possibly move on, or so I imagined. I tried so dang hard to stay away from her during that time, but she was always bugging me, wondering why Carol wasn't talking to her during the day. I let her know on repeated occasions that she has no cell service on her ship, but to her, it was just one of those in one ear and right out the other things. I eventually made it to Virginia in December 2022 to be with Carol. We have been ignoring all of Danielle's calls for a while now. Fast forward to April. Carol gets a text from Danielle asking her to call her to talk. They talk on the phone for a while and Carol learns that her grandma is not doing well. I also get my brother's high school graduation invitation in the mail and I want to see him graduate in May, which means that Carol wants to see her grandma because she fears that she may not make it to the end of 2023. Danielle seemed to be super nice, and Carol and I both thought that she'd changed because of all the therapy she had been getting. So, last week, we fly back to Colorado, and Danielle loans us her car while we're there, and was being way too nice to us like a decent human. We see my brother walk across the stage and Carol gets to see her grandma. While there, we learn that grandma wants to move into a, quote, more safer place, end quote, with Carol's aunt because of her health. And Danielle has to move somewhere else because, in her eyes, everyone doesn't want to take me in because the family doesn't like me. We told her that if we weren't living in a 650 square foot one-bedroom apartment on the other side of the country, yeah, then we could help her. Again, she starts being even nicer to us while still in Colorado. I even warned Carol that her being nice could mean something bad in the future, given her past behavior. Carol agreed. A few days after we flew back to Virginia, which was 5 days ago, Carol gets a text from Danielle saying that she's going to have to live in her car because nobody will help her in. Carol asked her why she can't get a job and get her own apartment, and she said that, quote, I can't get a job at my age, and it's been too long, and it's very expensive to live on your own, especially in Colorado. Carol told her that we unfortunately can't help her because, 1, we live in a small apartment, and 2, we live 7 states away on the other side of the country. So now, here we are today. I'm at work, and I get a call from Carol saying that she needs to be with me. I ask if everything's okay because I can tell she's not. She said she would talk about it when she got there. 30 minutes later, she shows up and I go on my lunch break with her. She tells me that her mom literally asked for $1,000 to help her move from Colorado to Virginia so she could be with us. $1,000! We told her multiple times we couldn't help her because we don't have that kind of room. We let alone don't have $1,000 to just give away because we live paycheck to paycheck. I was so flabbergasted. And then Carol told me that her being super nice in recent times was way too good to be true, which is what I felt would happen. She either didn't get the therapy that she needed or she lied. I don't know what the case was about that because there is no proof. I wasn't around for this part, but Carol and Danielle argued over the phone, more like cussing each other out per se. Danielle was upset with Carol for not providing a home for her when she did it for her first 20 years of life, and now Carol can't return the favor. Carol then told her mother just screw off already before hanging up and blocking her completely. Danielle is now homeless and living in her Nissan Sentra, but we couldn't care less. All those years Carol had to endure due to Danielle's entitled and narcissistic behavior is now biting her in the butt, and nobody wants to live with her because of this, because that witch only cares about herself and knows what she's doing is wrong and doesn't give a crap. I personally and honestly don't care if she dies. I will pee on her grave when she dies. Non-disabled person demands seat from disabled person. Disabled person is ticketed for said seat. Posted by CMurf 1960. I am disabled and use a walker. I have season tickets to the local minor league baseball game and I sit in an ADA section at the ballpark. It's on the concourse so I don't have to navigate steps to get to and from the restroom, the concessions, and so on. I have the same seat for every game of the season. It's at the end of the row and there's space for me to put my folded walker. It folds pretty small. And then room for me to get in and out even when the wheelchair spaces on the other side of my seat are occupied. Season ticket holders are given a card that the ticket taker scans on the way in. Okay, so one day last week, I was there, sitting in my seat, drinking my beer, waiting for the game to start, when this large group comes along. A few developmentally disabled adults and a lot of non-disabled companions. The row I sit in has 10 seats. 4 of them are actually wheelchair spaces. The 4 wheelchair spaces are taken by those who need them. That leaves 5 regular seats, as the one I am sitting in does not count here. So this able-bodied woman, who appeared to be the leader of this group, came over to me and then asked me to move because I was not ticketed for the seat, that her group had the whole row, so I had to move. I told her that she was mistaken and showed her my season ticket card that has the section, the row, and the seat number printed right there on it. She still would not believe me and then kept demanding that I move. I was about to go and fetch a staff member to resolve the issue when one came over. I've been a season ticket holder at this place since 2011 and I've had this particular seat for 2 years now. Almost everybody who works there knows me, so this was a battle that the entitled Karen could never hope to win. So the staff member guy tells the entitled Karen to leave me alone, that I'm ticketed for that seat and I don't have to move, and showed her where the seats her group was ticketed for are. They did have my whole row except for my seat, but only 5 of the non-disabled people could sit in the row, and the other 4 were wheelchairs. The rest of them had seats in the regular seating bowl, in the same section, but right in front of the concourse row. The ADA row is for actual disabled people and a limited number of companions, not for all the non-disabled people in a large group. So entitled Karen relents and leaves me alone, sort of. She's complaining very loudly to her friends that I should have been considerate and given up my seat to her. I ignored her. But wait, there's more. There's a pile of folding chairs in the alcove of the restrooms behind this row, and these people found them and decided to use them to make their own row behind me because they all wanted to sit together. Since both the wheelchair spaces to the left of me were occupied, the only access I had in and out was a space about 2 feet wide. Fine, I can do that. Then another person with a folding chair came along and tried to block off that little space, so I would have no way to get out. I turned around and I told them no, and they backed off. The game was sold out, so there were no other seats for me to move to just to get away from them. I hope I never have to see them again. I completely agree with this comment here, do you? I think it's worth it to complain to the stadium management. Had there been an emergency, this would not have been safe conditions. I smell a lawsuit cooking, do you? You're not disabled, you're just faking it to get attention. The logic of gossip, posted by Fred's Red. This happened a few years ago when I was working at a booth in a mall selling phone cases. There's a rumor in my town, no clue how it started, that this guy, Justin, not his real name, is faking being in a wheelchair to get attention and sympathy. I know him personally, and I know that this rumor is not true. He was hit by a drunk driver while crossing a pedestrian crossing 10 years ago and is a paraplegic. I'm a C4 and 5 incomplete quadriplegic, and I can spot a fake disabled person easily. Anyone else with a spinal cord injury will be able to relate. So I was at work and serving a customer when I saw Justin going past in his wheelchair. My customer saw him and scoffed. Can you believe people like that? It's bad enough for people like you, but people like him, he needs to stop faking it. I was shocked, and for a second, I didn't know what to say. I was in customer service mode and didn't want to say anything that could make me lose my job. I tried to reply. That's Justin. He's a paraplegic. He's not faking it. He's fooled you too, you poor girl. His name is Justin, and he was hit by a drunk driver 10 years ago on this street. He was in a coma for a week, and he lost sensation from the waist down. If you look this up online, you'll find the report of the incident. Please do some research and don't believe everything you hear. She muttered some halfway butt apology and then walked away without buying anything. I want to say that I haven't heard any other conversations about Justin faking it, but it's a small town, and gossip spreads like herpes here. It's been about 13 years since his injury, and for someone that's supposedly faking it, he's kept up the ruse very, very well. The moral of this story? Don't believe everything you hear. Hey, you know what they say, an assuming makes a what out of you and me? Oh man, this is ridiculous. As we get into the next story, I have to tell you something. Hey, also, I added more stories to the new 24/7 HOA Karen radio stream on the channel, perfect to binge or play for background noise while you sleep. Check out the link in the description or on the front page of the channel. It looks like this. How would you handle this one? It's called Mel, Karen, and Property Lines by Shortfinger Dizzy. I'm a senior construction superintendent in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The project I'm currently on is a 13-acre site smack in the middle of an extremely affluent area to the north of Dallas. 3 weeks ago, a city inspector that we'll call Joe came into the site office and said that they received a complaint about a sprinkler and soaker line being damaged during excavation for the fire lane. He, my landscaper, and myself went to investigate, discovered where a small fitting had blown out of the line. The landscaper repaired it. I went up to knock on the door to explain to them the issue and informed them of the repair. I got no answer at the door, so I left a card and a note asking them to call me, and they never did. A week later, Joe comes in and mentions that they've reached out again about the noise from the equipment, which is odd because anyone with heavy equipment is currently working on the other end of the property. I again went to speak with them, got no answer at the door, and I left a card again. Yesterday, in walks Joe to tell me that they're complaining about our construction fence, that it's on their property and killing their grass. The fence is 12 feet from their fence, and our specs call for it to be a minimum of 15 feet from the property line. So I pull up our CAD files on the survey plat so I can make sure that we have it placed exact, and realize that their wood fence is 4 feet onto our property. Their house is about 14 inches onto our property too. So during all of this, I get an email from the city asking me to place the construction fence squarely on our property line. The email is sent to me, the apparent homeowner, Joe, and my project manager. I brought the surveyors back out yesterday to pinpoint our property corners and to give us some 10 feet offsets, reference points 10 feet east of the property line for line of sight to measure from. I knocked on the homeowner's door again, and I got no answer. Mind you, every time there were cars in the drive. Fast forward to this morning, my fence crew showed up and they began moving the fence onto the property line, which takes 31 inches, or 2 feet 7 inches, of their driveway, and 18 feet of the road where it ends at the property was previously a cul-de-sac. The client finally reached out, or more accurately, came to the site office in a huff. I explained the issue, I showed him the plat, and he left with some unkind words flowing from him like diesel exhaust on a steep incline. I put a pause on the fence relocation just to soothe the wound. My project manager called him, and I called the city right-of-way engineer and our client. We set up a meeting that just ended. He claimed that our plat was wrong. The engineer and everyone else disagreed. The back and forth went on long enough for the client, who is extremely laid back and a quiet gentleman, to finally speak up and basically say, "Hey, we're just going to go ahead and sell you the property that you've stolen at current market value plus 10%. In this area, that's not cheap. If that's not acceptable, we'll just have you move your fence, cut out your driveway, and use the east side of your home for advertisement. Or you can back off, let these guys work, and we'll give you lifetime use of the area that you currently occupy, so long as there's no more hassling of any kind." The guy asked me if we'd move the fence back out, and I told him no. I agreed to take it off his driveway, but the street and the green space belonged to us. We only did what he asked us to do. The engineer who asked me to move it agreed. "I'd tell you to screw yourself, but I don't think you know how. Not quite malicious, but the fallout was intense." Posted by Rad Salamander 51. Disclaimer, names have been changed to protect the people involved. Me, a 19-year-old at the time. Laura was a general manager and both the sweetest woman and the best boss I've ever worked for. Ted, the manager, the arrogance of White Goodman, and the witchy attitude of Lewis Litt. Once upon a time, I used to work for a small chain of diners known for their golden arches. I got hired shortly after graduating high school and had worked there for almost a year when Laura announced to our crew that Ted had been promoted to assistant general manager. This made several people upset because Ted would go on to use his new authority to exchange favors for raises. A few weeks after Ted's promotion, I woke up on a Saturday feeling 50 shades of terrible, but I got up and did my morning ritual before work. When I went into the bathroom to brush my teeth, I saw that my face and neck were physically green, like Vlasic pickle green. But being 19 and terrified of disappointing management, I finished, got dressed, and went to work. I punch in and head to the back to wash my hands, and Laura is the first to say hi. "Morning, OP. Oh, baby, what is wrong with you?" "I don't know, ma'am. All I know is that I feel terrible." "Baby, why didn't you call me?" "I didn't want to let you down." "Honey, you are sick. Something's really the matter with you." Laura pulled out her phone and called the nearest urgent care. "Hello, I need to schedule your nearest appointment for one of my people. His name is OP. What's your birthday? Now your address." "Thank you, ma'am. He'll be right over." "Miss Laura, I can't afford a doctor visit right now." "Don't you worry about that, honey. I'm going to take care of that for you." After a thorough exam and some blood work, the doctor prescribes me a trio of antibiotics and 4 days of bed rest. Can't remember what I had, sorry. So I called my store to speak to Laura after leaving urgent care. So the doctor gave me medicine and I'm supposed to take 4 days off. Okay, I'm gonna double that for you, and don't you worry, I'll make sure you get paid for all of it. A few hours later, I'm laying in bed watching TV and my phone rings. Hello? Yeah, OP, where the heck are you? Is there a problem? You can say that. We're an hour into dinner and your butt is nowhere to be seen. Did you talk to Laura? What the heck does she have to do with you not being here? Did you talk to Laura? I don't need to talk to Laura. Listen, if you're not going on the clock within the hour, I suggest you start looking for other employment. So I did. I got dressed and went to work just like Ted told me and clocked in. And wouldn't you know it, Laura was the first person to see me. What are you doing here? I thought I told you to go home resting. I was, but Ted called me a bit ago and told me either I come in or I'm fired. Did you tell him to talk to me? Yeah, and he said he didn't need to. Is that so? Ted, come back here, please. I'm in the middle of getting my crap mixed. What's wrong with your face? You should have talked to Laura. Ted, OP is going home and he's going to be home for another 7 days. I don't want to hear a word from you about this, understand? Right. The day before I was supposed to go back to work, I got a call telling me that I needed to report to Franchise HQ for a meeting with owner, HR, and Ted. When I got there, I spoke to franchise owner who informed me that Laura was so enraged by Ted's statement that he didn't need to talk to her about my condition that she called HQ and told them everything. I was then subjected to the weakest apology ever delivered by a member of the human race. After what I gathered was a very serious conversation, Ted had agreed to transfer to the franchise's least profitable store, but not until he'd apologized to me for threatening my job. A few months after Ted's transfer, we were informed that his store folded due to a lack of positive leadership. Apparently, his new employees were less than thrilled to have a womanizer for a boss. Last I heard of Ted, he was a detailer for a local cab company. Laura, however, was promoted to regional manager for the way she looked after her employees. They figured she could teach that to other GMs. We're still good friends to this day. Karen made my train go behind schedule, posted by Flying Scotsman 6103. So this happened 2 years back. I thought of sharing it here. I was working as an engineer at a heritage museum, and at the end of the tour of the heritage museum, we had these rideable trains that kids and their parents could ride on to blow off the steam, pun absolutely intended, from the boringness of the tour. So I was given the job of driving these trains. Driving these trains was the best job in the museum, and I was fulfilling my lifelong dream of going on a steam train, blowing the whistle, listening to the kids all cheering and giggling with glee, and genuinely having a good time with my passion. So, as the engineer, you get to decide what train you want to drive for the day. I was going to drive the best steam train in the shed. It was a streamlined silver New York Hudson J3A Dreyfus. Oh man, it was a sight to see, and the whistle was loud and monstrous. Anywho, I decided to take it for a test drive before I took the passengers out for our 1-mile track with tunnels and hills and bends, trestle bridges, and crossing gates. I did the daily routine of oiling the axles, steaming the train, and cleaning the overall look to ensure that it was as shiny and silver as possible. I drove the train in the direction of our train yard. Okay, so let me set the scene. I was going to go through a railroad crossing, and before that, there was a parking lot on the left-hand side of the track, and while there was a whistle post on the other side. So this post, it was there to tell an engineer to blow the whistle before coming to a railroad crossing. I blew the whistle and immediately heard a car honk. I did not have time to turn around. The honk probably woke someone up, or a friendly person saw me coming and did a friendly honk. I went to pick up the cars and drove to the station. There was a crowd of kids and their parents looking at our manager's booth, and there was yelling. I did my usual thing of braking and using my bell instead of my whistle to tell my manager that I'd arrived on time. The manager and an angry woman came out. Let's call her EM, entitled Mom. Entitled Mom points at me and shouts, "Him!" I got up from my train idling and say, "Me, ma'am? How dare you try to scare my kids and me while we're trying to take a nap?" This was probably the person who honked my car at me. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I was following the sign's directions." "Well, look how traumatized my kids are." Her kids were fawning over the silver Dreyfus, taking pictures, not looking traumatized or scared. My manager says, "Ma'am, he was following directions, and please stop yelling. You're scaring the other kids. So, if you're going to ride, I am going to need to see your ticket." Some kids in line to ride my train's passenger car looked uncomfortable and antsy. They probably wanted the train ride to start. The parents were looking at the entitled mom because they didn't want to deal with their antsy kids. She huffed and said, "Fine, but my kids should ride in the front with the engineer." Entitled Mom gave the ticket to my manager, and my manager looked at the ticket. "Ma'am, first of all, you needed to book the ticket online and choose the seats for your kids and you. The front near the engineer and the back near the caboose is our most popular options. This ticket is for the middle train cars. Secondly, this ticket is for tomorrow, so I cannot let you ride today. OP, start the train." Entitled Mom started to have another tirade with the manager, and I went over to the two kids of Entitled Mom to tell them that I was starting the train. I felt bad for them having a psychotic mother like that, so I gave them a golden train keychain that I gave everyone at the end of a train ride. We were a few minutes behind schedule. "Thanks so much, Entitled Mom," so I yelled, "All aboard," blew the whistle, and left the station a little too quickly. I drove the train, and I was coming up on a railroad crossing and saw the Entitled Mom pulling up to the dropping gates of the crossing. I had a devilish thought in my head. I dropped the speed to 10 to 15 miles per hour. Karen was honking her car and screaming at me. I just looked at her and smiled, putting my hands up, and said, "Hey, I'm just following the rules. You know how it's done? Right then." Posted by Annie K. So, about 15 or so years ago, I was working in a little metalworking firm. Two brothers owned it, about 30 or so workers, metal casting, further processing up to including wires and other things. Bad explanation is bad. And we had about 5 women working in production, me, my mom, and 3 others. One of them was the unofficial sweetheart of one of our bosses. Anyway, Karen, changing the name for privacy, could not do wrong. Whatever went wrong, it wasn't her fault, ever. I had a run-in with her a few times already, and it wasn't the best. But I'm more of this silent type. Let others do what they want, and I'll do my thing, and so on. Us women were mostly there for preparing the product for sending out, washing metal bits, grinding back seams, sorting the small things into good and broken or not fully cast, and so on. I've been working there summers in the 90s with my gran as the unofficial supervisor, and she showed me the ropes. Later, when I worked there full-time, I knew the ins and outs of things, and some tricks that gran worked out along the way. Especially with our washing machines. Imagine them as a big bowl filled with specially formed stones. Add water and cleaning agent, the metal bits, and it would vibrate, and the stones rubbing against the product with soap and water would clean the product from residual oil and other things. One of the machines required a more special touch apart from the throw-in, start, and the done. I've been working there long enough and been shown by Gran and Mom how to set up that machine. I polished the metal on top of it, cleaning with tiny spherical little metal bits. Never cared enough to ask what they were made of. It was enough to know how to use it to make things shine. So, one day, I get a call. Boss is asking if I was washing something at the moment and what I was working on. I told him, no, I was done with washing. I was just now drilling the last holes and preparing the product for shipping out. He said he'd send Karen down with something time sensitive, and that was that. Karen comes down an hour later. Crate with time sensitive products has been there for a while, and it's coated with oil, soot, and all things nasty, ready to be cleaned and polished in that special machine. I ask if she needs help or some pointers, since I know that machine is a bit complicated to set up right. She looks at me, dirty and sweaty as I was from actually working, and she was nearly pristine from doing whatever she did with the boss, don't care, keep me out of it, and sniffs. Tells me she knows how to wash them and disappears in the washroom. Well then, if you know. A colleague comes over and asks if she's ever used that machine, and I shrug and tell him, not that I know of. She wasn't very popular there, can you tell? Anyway, I go back to work. Time goes by, lunch, and more time, and then our boss shows up. The product needs to be sent out today. Not long after, there's a shout for me to come to the washroom. Turns out, Karen doesn't know how to use the machine. The whole thing is oily, black, and nasty. Product looks worse than before. She used the wrong cleaning agent, didn't add the polishing powder at the right time, and pretty much screwed the whole thing up. Boss asked me why didn't I say something, help her, intervene, anything. Well, she said she knew what to do and asked colleague if he was there. Door to the washroom is closed and I have other things to do than to stick my nose where it's not wanted. Do I know how to deal with this problem? Sure. The machine and the stones need cleaning, the product needs cleaning, and it's going to take quite a while. In the end, Karen was allowed to finish my dirty work, and I spent the rest of the day cleaning up her mess. I wasn't allowed to leave the washroom, boss's orders. So, I started a washing cycle with the right agent and no product in it to clean the machine and the stones, sat down and did nothing. And then added the product, more cleaning agent, and powder after the oily gunk was gone, and pretty much spent half a day doing close to nothing while Karen had to do my work. I could have helped her, but us unwashed peasants were not good enough for Her Highness. Entitled Mom Trying to Own My Property, posted by Educational Aioli 944. This is a very complicated story, and I'm not sure if they are the entitled ones or me. My parents acquired several assets a long time ago, and at some point they were almost broken due to my mom's bad decisions. In order to protect the assets, the best option was to put everything on my name, as I was the only minor at that time in the family. I was not even 10, and there's at least a 10-year gap with my sisters. But my mom, who never wanted me to have anything, decided that everything should be on my siblings' name. Moving time forward, when I was still underage, my aunt by my dad's side decided to gift him a property, but because she didn't like my mom, the property ended up under my name. There's a couple of stories, not sure which one is true, regarding this property. So the first story they have is that my dad's dad bought the property, and at some point he was short of cash, so he asked my dad for money. He did give it to him, even if he had several kids and was already married. My mom was not happy about it, and my dad's dad could pay the mortgage. Nobody knows if my grandfather returned the money. Some people said that Aunt A took it with Uncle B, not married siblings. When my grandfather died, A inherited the property. There were conflicts with the will, and later on, she gave it to me. So the second story that they have lined up is that my dad bought it as a gift to my grandfather when he was still single and no kids. My dad paid the mortgage all his life, even after he married my mom and had kids. The property was always on my grandfather's name, and when he died, A inherited it, and later on, she gave it to me. My parents have lived in the property several years. They no longer live there, and they have put money onto that, and they don't pay rent at all, but they cover the maintenance cost. That was the verbal agreement that I had with them. Now, my sister bought a property in the same city. The property is nice, it's just in the same building with her in-laws. She's quite old, and the banks won't give her a mortgage now, over 50. Having a property in that building has caused a lot of problems to my sister, and she would like to have a different property so she's no longer close to her in-laws. On the other hand, my mom has always considered my property as her property, and she wants to give a property in that city to my sister A, but she can't do it because she doesn't have the money to buy another one, and I won't put it on my sister's name. Another agreement is that we will keep whatever is on our name, so I don't get anything but that property, which actually comes from A, not my parents. And my dad also owns half of another property. My mom tried to buy the rest from B and put it under my sister's name, but B put a very high price. I think he didn't want to sell it like that. So the question is, who's the entitled one here? Am I the entitled one because I don't want to give away the property? In other words, does it really belong to my parents? Or is my mom? Ooh, here's a really good piece of information. This will settle the story. It was given to you by your aunt, so you're the legal owner, not your mother, comment says, and OP replies, yes, legally the property is mine, but my mom considers it hers because my dad fully paid the mortgage, story 2, when he was already with my mom. She has put a lot of money in renovations when living there, like a new bathroom, 2 bedrooms that were isolated, new windows, a new kitchen, and there's now GCH, on top of maintenance expenses that they, my dad and her, still pay. I should have mentioned that I have the property, but not the right to use it freely. It belongs to my dad. A wanted it like that, so my dad could use the property, but my mom wouldn't own it. My dad can't sell it. I mean, hey, if your name is on it legally, that is legally yours. What do you think? Entitled woman demands treatment for her husband for free by ND25607. This OP writes great stories. You're going to love it. Quick intro. I'm a 34 female nurse for a doctor's office, and I also work overnights for an ER. I'm back again with another incident, and no, not our lovely Kevin. One of my pet peeves is that people assume urgent care is an ER. People, please be smart and understand that they're not the same. It's an ordinary Wednesday, with the usual patients coming in for treatment at the clinic when this couple comes into my clinic. My AA, administrative assistant, let's nickname her Nicole, greets them in and begins to register the patient after confirming that we do accept their insurance and will be able to treat them. He, let's call him Bob, he was really sweet, is wanting to be seen for a foot injury. We call him back to start getting his vitals, his blood pressure, temperature, height, and weight. Then we send him back into the waiting room. After about 5 minutes, I begin to hear a commotion on the other side of the door into our waiting room. I take a brief pause with the patient and I go to see what all the chaos is. When I open the door, I see the patient's wife hurl a bottle of unknown substance at my poor administrative assistant. Here is what transpired. Karen says, "What?" Nicole says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we cannot." Our administrative assistant, Nicole, gets cut off. Bob says, "I have VA insurance and Medicare." "Is the VA primary?" "Yeah, the VA sent me here." "No, your Medicare is primary," says to Bob. "Shut up. No, his Medicare is primary," and turns and says it to our administrative assistant, Nicole. Well, just give me a few minutes," Nicole replies. "I will verify the insurance. If you wouldn't mind, could you fill out this additional paperwork?" I approach Nicole, ask her what's going on. She tells me that they're here for a foot injury. They're angry that the VA wouldn't treat them and that she cannot get a straight answer out of them. So I go to the back real quick, grab something to photocopy, only to eavesdrop on the conversation. "Ma'am," Nicole starts, "I was able to confirm that the Medicare insurance is primary, so we will be able to run it under the Medicare policy. There's just a $40 copay due for today's visit." "Excuse me?" "I'm sorry, but it looks like there's a $40 copay due for today's visit. How would you like to take care of it today?" Very smugly, Karen replies, "I don't get paid until Friday, so you will have to wait until Friday." "I'm sorry, ma'am, but that is not how things work here. We cannot just treat you without being paid first." "Oh, it's fine. You can treat him. We have nowhere else to go, and you can just bill us." "I have VA coverage and Medicare. I shouldn't have to pay anything for today," Bob replies. "That would be correct, sir. Only we are not in network with the VA or TRICARE, so we wouldn't be able to bill VA for your care or your copay. Therefore, we would have to collect the $40 copay in order for you to be seen." "Look, can't you just treat my husband and bill us for today?" "No, ma'am, you will need to pay or I will have to ask you to leave." At this point, I emerge from behind the wall that had the photocopy machine. "Hey, is everything okay?" I say. Nicole tries to explain the situation, even though I've heard every single word, when the entitled Karen cuts off Nicole. "This rude girl is refusing to have my husband seen. Isn't it your job to see anyone who is hurt or sick?" "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, that you've gotten confused. You see, we are an urgent care clinic. My provider and I will gladly see your husband as long as your insurance is within network." Our beautiful Karen replies, "We are in network. Now treat my husband." "Ma'am, I've been listening to your conversation with my administrative assistant, Nicole. Although you're in network, you're refusing to be treated in our clinic because you're refusing to pay for the treatment. Now, I don't care for your tone or how you've spoken to my administrative assistant. I think it's best you leave. You will need to take your husband to the nearest ER for treatment, as they have measures set in place for individuals like yourself." "How dare you speak to me like that? I demand to see the provider. Ma'am, as I am the head nurse here at this moment, I'm the only provider in the facility, and I refuse to see you. You cannot do that, she whimpers. It goes against your Hippocratic oath to take care of the sick and injured. Ma'am, I want to make it clear. I'm not refusing you. You are refusing me. Now, you're refusing to leave my clinic. Please leave, or I will have you escorted out of this building by the police. But you, she stammers out while being dragged by her husband. This isn't the last you've heard from me. I will tell everyone I know how terrible this place is. I'm sorry, Bob says. Thank you for your time. I fully understand, he says sheepishly, as if he is embarrassed. Turns to his wife. That's enough. Since this incident, Bob has returned for follow-up treatment on his injury. He is the sweetest man and refuses to bring his wife back to our clinic. I apologize profusely for the incident and how things transpired. While caring for him, I found out that he had a trailer hitch fall onto his foot. He suffered a minor sprain in his foot, and Bob has been making a full recovery. Do you agree with this comment? $40 for a medical treatment like that probably cost hundreds or thousands without insurance. How dare you? Darn, Karen, how dare you pay for something that you're supposed to pay for? Screw them kids. How a grown man threatened to call corporate over a child. Posted by Other Cantaloupe 4765, author of the Mega Karen story. Oh, here we go. Children in hotels. They have the potential to be adorable and funny, shy and quiet, or obnoxious little hellions. For every baby that smiles and waves at me, and every toddler that excitedly tells me about their birthday or new toy, there are two obnoxious, spoiled brats who run screaming through my lobby. The spoiled brats can be annoying, but what's even more annoying is when the parents ignore it, or worse, encourage it. And there is no shortage of bitter adults getting angry over the sound of children. I once had a guy threaten to call the cops if the toddler in the next room didn't immediately stop making all noise. Now look, I get it to a certain point. It can be freaking annoying to have to listen to toddlers or babies running around and crying when you're trying to relax or have a nice, quiet holiday. We try to keep the kids on the first floor so they're not disturbing to the other floors. But there's not a ton you can do when one adult checks in, gets assigned a top floor room, goes outside to park their car and unload their luggage, and then comes back in with 4 young children. That makes me internally scream. I checked in one older guy, probably middle-aged, in the day before. He was pretty gruff, but he softened as I talked with him. No issues. I put him in a room and he was on his way. 2nd floor. He was staying for 2 nights, so let's refer to him as Joe. Fast forward to the next night around 10:45. A family comes in with 2 young kids. My best guess is they were both around the age of 4. The parents looked older. I actually thought they were the grandparents at first. Whoops. And I only realized my mistake when the woman referred to her partner as Daddy when talking to the kids. Anyway, no more rooms on the 1st floor. I'll have to put them on the 2nd. Dad was outside parking the car and getting the luggage unloaded, and Mom was inside with the kids. They'd been traveling all day. The kids were running around, touching things and being loud. Kind of annoying. Mom told them to stop a few times before just giving up. She looked very, very tired. I don't blame her. I noticed and I said, "Hey, do you kids want to watch TV for a little bit?" They ran to sit down. I turned on the Disney Channel for them, and they didn't make another peep until they were going up to the room. Mom flashed me a grateful smile. Okay, so Dad comes back in, and they all shuffle into the elevator. It's 11:05 p.m., and not 5 minutes later, Joe gets off the elevator and comes storming into the lobby with bulging eyes. He was obviously ticked. He said, "Some kid woke me up. You can either comp my room or I will call corporate now." Holy crap, dude. Talk about overreacting. Hey, I apologize for the noise. They just got here. They were just getting settled in their room. There shouldn't be any more noise from them. I know that. The noise only lasted about 20 seconds before it stopped, but the damage has already been done. They woke me up and I won't be able to go back to sleep because of the adrenaline rush it gave me. And your security cameras, they caught all of it. So there's proof. I have to leave at 1 a.m. This is unacceptable. Comp the room or I'm calling corporate. Holy freaking crap, bro. Imagine being so ticked that you call corporate over a 4-year-old. What exactly do you expect them to do? Look, I get that it's annoying. I'm sorry that you were woken up. I know it's late, but the noise stopped. Corporate ain't gonna kick a 4-year-old out on their butt because they got a little rambunctious. How about 10% off? How about 30%? I'd have to run that by my manager, who is at home sleeping. Fine, then just give me the number for corporate. I don't have the corporate number. I'm not sure where it is, but I will give you my GM's business card and you can speak to him and get the corporate number if needed. Fine. So I gave him the business card. He looks at it, tosses it back on the desk and says, "You gonna call him for me?" Right now? Yes, right now. Those kids woke me up, so now you can wake your manager up. It would be funny if he wasn't so ticked and aggressive about it. To be honest, it is still kind of funny. You're calling corporate to report a toddler? Ridiculous. And I did, indeed, wake my manager up. I handed the guy the phone, and I listened as he recounted the incident dramatically to the manager. You'd think that jerk just returned from the Great War rather than his hotel room with the way that he was talking. And he made sure to detail my insulting offer and my incredulity over the way he wanted to call corporate on a toddler. He hands the phone back to me, and I ask my manager what's up. He tiredly sighs and says, just give the guy 30% off. I'm not arguing about this at 11:30 p.m. So, 30% off for the bitter butt who leaves at 1 a.m. Whatever. So it was recording Karen last week and then the corporate threat dude this week. My manager came in the next day and, long story short, now the entire office has been assigned training on de-escalation. Now here's some context in the comments that I did not consider, but it makes a whole difference. Gingy Butt says, "Bro, you are wild for waking your general manager up." OP replies, "I was salty about the incident the week before when I told Karen to get the heck out because she was screeching and calling me names. Management told her that they'd upgrade her room for no additional cost. You're rewarding Karen for her tantrum? Ring ring, time to get out of bed. Business class upgrade if there's room," posted by Northwest Passage. I used to work at a regional airline. The jet we used for our flight to the big city had 6 business class seats. The business class service was really good for a 2-hour flight. I mean, it included a full bar service, it had a hot meal, warmed bread baskets, and was followed by a trolley with dessert and signature coffee. The good old days. Now, one of our regular travelers was just a local business owner who was just a slimy businessman. I mean, he had a reputation for making a lot of money from some pretty shady deals over the years. We would roll our eyes when we saw him coming to the check-in counter because he would always name drop and ask for special treatment. He always used the business class check-in line even though he was usually in economy. He didn't have frequent flyer status, but he was buddies with one of the airline executives, and he always let us know this fact when he checked in by making sure to tell us that he was good friends with Vice President Karen. He would always ask for free upgrades, extra baggage, not charging a change fee, last-minute discounts, and blah blah blah. If he didn't get what he wanted, he immediately called Vice President Karen, who would usually then call us and approve whatever it was that he wanted. One day, slimy businessman checks in for his flight to the big city and of course name drops and asks for a free upgrade to business class because I'm friends with Vice President Karen and she said it would be okay. He was traveling on a discounted ticket that was not eligible for upgrade even if he did have an upgrade coupon, which he didn't. I informed him that he was not eligible for any upgrade on this ticket and I gave him his boarding pass and sent him on his way. Of course, he flips open his cell phone and immediately calls Vice President Karen. Within 2 minutes, the phone at the check-in desk rings and, of course, it's Vice President Karen authorizing me to override the policy upgrade to the slimy businessman to the business class with no upgrade coupon required, if there is room, she says. The flight that day wasn't that busy, and only one person booked in business class, leaving 5 open seats. I was really irritated, but I begrudgingly put the slimy businessman on the upgrade list anyways. He returned to the check-in counter and picked up his standby boarding card and gave me that smug, told you so look. But then what VP Karen said clicked with me. If there is room. The next passenger I checked in was a super nice lady, big smile and friendly. Please and thank you. Oh, thank you so much for checking my bags to my connecting flight. That's so nice of you. I mean, I was taking my time and we were chatting a bit, well, since it wasn't that busy. She was a teacher going on a trip to see her family, and it was her first visit with them in over a year, and she was going to meet her new little nephew for the first time. She was just overjoyed just to have the time off to travel. I typed in a few things into the computer to make it look like I was checking something about her connecting flights, and then said, "Oh hey, you've been selected today to receive a free upgrade to business class." She was shocked. I've never flown in business class in my life. This is so amazing. At that time, we were rarely questioned if we upgraded someone without a certificate. Over the next 20 minutes, I found excuses to upgrade 4 other passengers. One who worked for one of our top corporate accounts, one who was, well, legitimately a frequent flyer. I can't remember the other reasons, but by the time that I went to board the flight, I had to tell slimy businessman that I was sorry, but our business class was full and I couldn't offer him an upgrade today. The teacher that I upgraded profusely thanked me again when she boarded with the rest of the business class passengers. Little did she know that it really made my day also. Now, there were no repercussions to my actions. We rarely upgraded passengers randomly, so it wasn't something that caught management's attention, and they mostly trusted our judgment on these things. But, like many customer service jobs, I'm sure if you were nice to us, we would go out of our way to help you. If you were not nice to us, we would apply the rules very strictly. Our boss did watch baggage like a hawk, though. If you printed more bag tags than the passenger allowance without collecting the excess fee, it showed on your daily report, and you would be asked about it at the start of your next shift. Oh, this story, if this is not a Karen, I don't know what is. It's called, "I Demand You Drive to My House and Restart My Router for Me," posted by Macrillan. I remembered another little gem from a month or so back. The customer had sent in a trouble ticket that his internet was not working after changing internet speed. My department at Second Line proceeded to troubleshoot it, and we could not see anything wrong. We could clearly see his private router was receiving an IP address and it was pingable. As such, I called the customer to ask him to connect a PC directly to his CPE. Unfortunately, this was not an option. See, it turned out that the customer was not even at home. Instead, he was around 800 kilometers away on the other side of the country and would not be home for 5 months or so. How did he know that his internet did not work then, you might ask? Well, apparently the guy had some kind of surveillance system with a ton of cameras, and he could no longer connect to them remotely, and demanded that we fix it. I might add that our support stretches to making sure internet works at home on one unit, not troubleshooting people's security systems connecting via VPN. I told the customer the deal, that we did not see anything wrong, and that he needed to restart his equipment, CPE and router, and connect a PC directly before we could even consider taking this ticket further. The absolute basics. But, as mentioned, the customer was not exactly available to do this. Instead, the customer thought that we should send out a technician to his house and I guess break in to restart his equipment. Naturally, I told him no, since that would be highly illegal. The customer then demanded that we reimburse him for needing to travel 1,600 kilometers back and forth to restart his equipment himself. Naturally, I told him we would not do that. He also demanded us to tell him his IP address so he could fix the issue himself. Naturally, I told him that we do not give out IP addresses over the phone since that would be highly illegal and go against GDPR. It went back and forth like that for around 20 minutes. In the end, I told him, look, your options are either go home and do basic troubleshooting or live with the issue of not being able to use your cameras remotely until you get home in 5 months. Which one do you prefer? The customer refused both options. I then hung up the phone. Rumor has it that the customer still cannot access his security cameras from wherever he is at.